From the Mac of All Trades studio in Fairport. And driven by Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, it's Billified, the Bill Moran Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for getting your pod on. Thanks for telling a friend. That's how we spread the word about the pirate ship. Find us on YouTube at Billified. Find us on Facebook at Billified. And we're _ pod. We're everywhere on all the social media. It's so cold, Doug.
How cold is it?
It's so cold that every kind of cereal in the cupboard is Frosted, including the boxes. Ow!
It's colder than a witch's tit out there.
It's so cold, I tried to take out the garbage, but it refused to go, Dougie.
Oh, that's cold.
That's
well,
cold.
We're doing dad
it's
jokes.
So cold.
I like that.
It's so cold. I saw an Amish guy buy an electric blanket. Come on. Come on.
I like it. Fire away.
It's so cold, Doug. I turned on the shower and I got hail. How about this? It is literally, it's so cold, around 150 million Americans, or about 45% of the population, have been under wind chill warnings and advisories.
45% of the population?
Yes. That's how bad it has been around the country.
I thought it was global warming.
Could be part of global warming.
Only in a voting year.
I think even in Alabama, where my kid is, it's the second day in a row, no school. Tomorrow. They already canceled school tomorrow today.
Do they have? Now, they don't have plows.
They don't have the salt and the stuff, but they had probably about 6 inches, he said. He was out sledding on a golf course.
Wonderful.
AccuWeather posted a video that someone put in Denver. It's frozen noodles suspending a fork in the air.
That's not
it looks kind of interesting.
In Minnesota, they had a snowman at the end of the driveway with his pants down.
Oh my God!
You heard the snowblower was coming.
Whoa! Hey! Oh! You would come with one. I was just waiting.
Had to get the wheels turning.
I was waiting.
I need some WD-40 up top. They're frozen.
There are all these videos too. If you look at, like, Chicago has been sub-zero temperatures, so the water in the river and the water in the lake is warmer. So it looks like steam is coming off.
Okay.
It's very foggy. There's all kinds of videos of that. It's so cold. Portland, Oregon's largest sewage station, was running at half capacity because the pipes froze.
Hear that. Yes.
And it backed up into people's houses. Could you imagine?
No, I couldn't.
No.
That would be terrible. How do you clean that up?
Surf Pro.
You don't get the old duck vac or...
No. You get the shit vac.
Yeah.
You get the shit vac. No, I would say Surf Pro. I'd have them come in. I remember as a Surf Pro, like...
What is Surf Pro?
Surf Pro is a cleaning, but they do like a deep clean.
Okay.
I think they do, I mean, I'm not sure, murder scenes and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, I remember one time the furnace backed up when I was a kid, and we all woke up, and I remember, like, looking at my mom being like, oh, my God, she was breathing through her nose all night, and there was soot because it had backed up, and there was soot all throughout the house, up the walls.
God.
So they had Surf Pro come in and wash the walls and do everything, do an entire cleaning. We moved out for the weekend, and that was the whole thing. So I think Surf Pro takes care of all that. I don't know.
It's got to be a pretty penny. Ain't cheap.
Well, yeah, but if it's the sewage plant's fault.
No. Yes, they should.
Yes. You're up Schitt's Creek.
You're up without a paddle.
Now, here's something that you can relate to.
What?
Because
gambling?
No.
Chronic masturbation? Ubering?
Well, chronic masturbation. Ubering, yes.
Ubering, okay.
Ubering, in that you see the poor driving habits of majority of people,
Terrible.
Correct?
I want to say majority.
Not majority.
But that 1 or 2% is ruining for a lot of people.
1 or 2%? I always feel like
you got
it's
100
higher.
drivers out there.
Yeah.
Again, getting passed on it twice a day, double yellow line.
Okay.
Just in a residential, 35, maybe 40 miles per hour in between English and Fetzner.
Do you notice how old the drivers are?
Yeah, they're young. They're
young.
Under 25.
Okay. Yeah. Because I got passed on the double yellow right in the village of Fairport.
Really?
Yeah.
Out here? They don't have criminals out here.
Down. Oh yeah, they got criminals. Is that me or you?
It's you. It's okay. It's not important.
Everything's going.
Right. Everything's
been a little haywire.
Everybody's getting a little too cold. Everybody's already got cabin fever.
How about this? Iowa State Patrol, they had a blizzard. Okay, blizzard conditions.
Yep.
Many accidents, hundreds of accidents. State police put up video. pulling people over for speeding, and they put the radar. One person, 92 miles an hour in a blizzard. The other one, 94 miles an hour.
What are you thinking?
I don't know. I blame this because it looked like these were newer cars. And I think, I mean, this is going to sound really, really dumb, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Go ahead.
I think that they make the cars so well today that it feels like you can handle anything. Almost like you're invincible. Like, screw it.
How old were the people? They don't tell you.
They don't tell you
Okay.
how old the people were. And I went looking because I thought the same thing. But one was a BMW SUV. I'm thinking that's not usually a young person that's driving that. But maybe I'm wrong.
But you know you're not indestructible in a car. And you got to...
Yeah, but you're flying
gotta
along.
think about it.
What's everybody, you pussies, slowing down more?
Right.
Yeah, you bunch of
Just
pussies.
like summer.
Yeah, exactly. In the 90s.
Black ice, not freeze dry. What am I thinking? Flash freezing, and that's what it's called?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
flash freeze. Yep.
And all of a sudden you got black ice, and then you're in a telephone pole.
Well, that's all you need. I mean, I always say, and I'll see if you, to me, ice is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter how good your skill level is or not.
For there's a
some
couple
people,
things you can do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you start sliding,
go the opposite way.
no,
Don't you?
take your foot off the gas.
Yeah, so
don't touch anything.
I don't touch anything, and then
Let
if
it
I
glide.
can, if you're just going straight.
Right. They say
Yeah.
if you're swerving some way, go with where you're going. I turn a little bit
I
that
do
way.
too. I try to
and
go
let
the other
the weight of the
back
car
end.
slow you down.
I try to get the back end to come around.
You're always about the back end.
I am. Well, there's some great classes you can take, like the BMW Club of Rochester. I know this sounds, people make fun
I'm
of
in the KFC club.
Are you? Oh, so good. Do they wet down the paddock and have you slide in?
Yeah.
Because they used to do a thing, I think it was over at MCC in that giant parking lot. They would wet it down and they would teach you how to drive in slippery conditions, grab the e-brake, all this different stuff to try to teach people beyond what you would get in any driver's ed course. Which a lot of times, we know defensive driving, or we think we know defensive driving, but it is that kind of case where you're sliding. I remember being on the Taconic Parkway a million years ago, coming home from my girlfriend's house. I was about 19. She lived down by Sing Sing Prison. Yeah.
How far away was that?
Ossining was probably about an hour from my parents.
Worth the trip.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you're getting a little brown chicken, brown cow, an hour, 2 hours,
So
3.
I'm driving back, and I hit a patch of ice, and I wind up off, but there were 2 other cars off already, and people standing in the woods, and one of them was a state trooper, and I guess some other people told the police when they showed up. I could drive my car. It was dented, but I could drive, so I just wanted to get home because I knew my parents were going to kill me already. And then, but I think some people said they thought the state trooper who was involved in this, and we're going back almost 30 years, was drunk. So I would get calls from the state troopers going, were you a witness? And I was like, I don't know nothing.
I know nothing. It was called out. I just got a little brown chicken, brown cow from the girlfriend who I'm going.
It's so cold.
How cold is it?
That Andy Reid's mustache froze.
It
Did you see that? Did you see that? It was frozen, Doug.
I know, but it's from him breathing through his nose and the perspiration.
Yes.
Yeah. Unless you go like that. Yeah.
But it literally had icicles dripping off the bottom of his fur. He looked like a walrus.
If you watch the Winter Olympics, the outdoor sports, the biathlon, and people with beards, how cold it is, it'll.
So, by the way, Chiefs, according to The Athletic, the Chiefs,
Kansas City Chiefs?
to win the Super Bowl, 10.5% chance.
10.5%.
Who do you think? So we started out with 32 teams.
It's
vying to get to the Super Bowl.
I think
we're down to 8. Who has the highest percentage according to The Athletic?
Highest? Let's go lowest to highest.
Okay. Lowest percentage, lowest shot.
Tampa. Well, we got 8, so I'm going to put Tampa Bay 8.
They're not.
They're not?
No.
Packers.
You're missing somebody. Nope, not the Packers.
Detroit?
Nope. Think of an AFC team. Yes.
The
You just
Texans, they have an 8?
Yes.
Really?
Well, Texans have a 3.3% chance of making it to
because
of
they're
winning
playing
the
the
Super
Ravens,
Bowl.
winning the Super Bowl?
Of winning. This is the percentage to win the Super Bowl. 3.3.
Okay.
Then the Bucks at 4.2%.
And there's
Then Green Bay at 4.6%. Then it's the Lions at 9.8%. Chiefs
KC at 4. I'm going to say Bills at 3.
Bills at 11.4%.
And then
go ahead.
Ravens
at 22.6%.
And the Niners at
fuck you 33.6%.
33.6.
According to The Athletic, to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I like those.
To win the Super
Bowl. Yeah. I believe it is our year. I was over at my dad's yesterday for the first half of the game. Then I drove Uber, and he goes, "What are you going to do if they get in the Super Bowl?" I go, "You mean when we get in the Super Bowl?" Very positive. I was like, "I will be shutting off my phone, turning off Facebook, not talking to anybody, screaming, yelling. I can't be that guy at a bar."
So when do they play? Saturday?
Play next Saturday. This Saturday.
Yeah.
8:15. Green Bay at home. Yeah. I think we're already 10-point favorites.
No problem.
Not that that makes a difference, but
it's funny because a lot of people jumping on the fact that the Eagles are out, the Cowboys are out.
They fell apart.
The Eagles went 10-1.
10-1.
And then they just absolutely went.
Something was happening in the locker room where you're not getting along.
Well, you saw guys, somebody was yelling they were yelling on the sidelines at each other yesterday. Not at each other. Weird. One guy was really kind of melting
Somebody
down
couldn't keep that team motivated.
Yeah.
We're just in the Super Bowl. We're 10-1.
Well, Hurts was getting I think it was the tight end, and I'm going to forget his name. There was video of him kind of emphatically going at it. Mariota's standing there, and it's Jalen Hurts who's on the bench, and this guy is just kind of like letting Jalen have it. This tight end.
He really looked emotionless.
It did. Now, here's the thing. Have you? We live in one of the most interesting times in the world's history because of the technology and the level of communication. I think there are so many people who had a former employer, a boss, a teacher, someone, maybe even an ex, that you would love at any moment to just let them know how you feel about them right now and make sure they fucking know it right now, right? I mean, that is kind of the thing.
A coworker
you could have anybody.
You know what? Sometimes you look like, I'd like to run into that person.
Yes.
But at the same time, what am I going to do? Blow up at him?
Well,
I hate him that much.
Look,
the answer is yes.
The thing is, like, the answer is that's how you feel,
right?
Not what you should do,
right?
So Robert Griffin III. Robert Griffin III was taken second overall in, I believe, in 2014
for Washington, and Shanahan was his coach.
Was it Shanahan or Jay Gruden?
No, Shanahan, the older. And he
was Jay Gruden the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach?
I don't know.
Okay, because I know Jay Gruden eventually became the head coach there.
For Washington?
Yeah. Jay did.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if he was the head coach because he said, so yesterday he gets on.
No, I know it was Shanahan for sure because he was a coach with the Niners, offensive coach, so I kind of watched him a little bit.
So he gets on he's on Twitter, Jay Gruden. And he writes, if I ever put a quarterback through what Philly is putting Jalen through, I apologize. Pick up the blitz, Gruden wrote. Now, Griffin and Gruden went back and forth on this because Griffin, he joined the Redskins. He was their head coach. Gruden was their head coach in 2014. And he benched Robert Griffin III for Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
I think back then, your guy was the offensive coordinator for the Commanders.
Shanahan?
Yeah.
I know he was in the playoffs and he was hurt. RP3, they called him?
RG3.
RG3.
Yes, he got hurt. He did. He hurt his ankle, and he
should have came out. And Shanahan was like, "Okay, we need you. You got to step up here." And I think he hurt it more, and I think it ruined his career. I don't think he ever started again.
Griffin, well, he actually played. I
was a backup, but I don't think he.
I was shocked how long he was in the league. I didn't think he was in the league that long. He was in for almost. They're saying 10 seasons. He played for Gruden in 2014.
Four different teams.
Yeah. So Griffin reposted what Gruden's message was, saying, if I ever put a quarterback through, right? He goes, say what?
Yeah. Did you forget a little something?
So then Gruden replies, you weren't prepared, Robert. Okay. So Griffin writes back, you told me you didn't know how to coach a quarterback who could throw and run like me, so it looks like you weren't prepared, Jay. I go, this is the greatest time to be alive.
Right.
Because this is a conversation that everybody who's ever had that coach, that boss, that whatever has wanted to do this. Gruden, by the way, currently serves as the offensive consultant for the Los Angeles Rams. The hell is that? They're paying him basically not to coach. They're paying him not to get on the sideline for somebody.
Yeah, if you can get into coaching, especially in Division I, big school, you can have a nice career there with a nice payday.
But what I'm saying is the Rams,
right?
Professional team, they have an offensive coordinator. They have a head coach. He's an offensive consultant.
Just for a couple ideas here and there, just in case you need me.
So he writes, boy, that escalated quickly. And then Gruden previously served as the offensive coordinator for the Bengals from 2011 to 13, and then the Jaguars in 2020. Griffin played 8 NFL seasons with Washington 2012 to 2015. I'm sorry, he came out in 2012. Cleveland in 2016, Baltimore 18 to 20, and then he was released in 2021. I didn't even realize the guy threw for almost 10,000 yards and 43 touchdowns. But then Brian Mitchell, who won a Super Bowl with Washington in 92, also responded to Gruden's message about Hurts. He goes, are you serious? Dude, please just effing disappear. He writes to Gruden. And Gruden writes back to him, be quiet, because he's a punt returner. And he goes, and so the guy writes back to him, I was way better at all my jobs than you were at yours. You're a joke. And Gruden goes, you've criticized every coach that has ever coached in D.C. Why don't you coach? Punt return team would be sick. It's like, I go, this is awesome.
It's like notes being passed in high school.
That would be awesome. Did you ever have an opportunity to maybe melt down on a forum? Have you ever run into someone along the way that maybe said something disparaging to you or told you would never amount to anything, or the proverbial nothing like that?
No.
I heard a great story. It was on like one of those YouTube shorts. And it was Brad Pitt interviewing Adam Sandler. Odd pairing, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't see that. But and he said, and Pitt goes, my favorite Adam Sandler story is this. And he goes, maybe you can verify it. You were at NYU, and you went out for a beer with one of your teachers, an acting teacher, and he said to you, you should probably find a different line of work. You should probably find some other.
Said that to Brad Pitt?
Hey, no, Brad Pitt is sitting there. It's like me and you, and let's say, just for the sake of argument at the moment, I'm Brad Pitt.
Okay.
You're Adam Sandler. Okay. I'm interviewing you, is basically. And Brad Pitt says, my favorite story about you is this. You, Adam Sandler, were a student at NYU. You went out for a beer with one of your teachers, and the teacher said to you, you should probably think of something else, maybe behind the scenes. You should definitely find a different line of work. This really isn't your forte. This isn't what you should be doing.
Right.
And he said, fast forward a number of years, you're in a bar in New York City with a bunch of your friends. Your career is going very well. You've got your own production company. You were making all these movies. And there's that teacher. And you walked up to the teacher and you introduced everybody in your crowd. And you said, this is the first teacher to ever buy me a beer. And never said another word. And somebody else knew the story, and he goes, and Adam goes, yeah. He goes, why am I gonna? He goes, but you didn't rub it in the guy's face like, hey. He goes, that's an opportunity basically to go. You told me I would amount to nothing, basically.
Well,
and I think that many of us ideal like the fantasy. It's almost like the kid, you're playing in your driveway basketball. 3, 2, 1, and he wins it, right? Or the home run or whatever you do in the backyard. Same thing. We have these fantasy arguments in our head. If I ever see that person, I'm going to tell him. You still do?
Oh, I just have fantasies in my head. Driving Uber scenarios drive me crazy. But
like what?
God, I don't know. I'll tell you one thing that did come up this year. It was about golf, the golf tournament I do.
Yeah.
Because when I started wrestling in 10th grade, I didn't know anybody. And I found out later in life, they never thought I was going to make it. And I ended up being a 2-time MVP and going to wrestle Division I.
Isn't that awesome?
Then I moved to California when I was 30 to be a screenwriter, which people probably didn't think anything. And I kept going and came back, made a movie. Didn't go anywhere. And
still hasn't even gone into my DVD.
You haven't even watched it yet. So you know what? So I will have somebody I'll review a new one when you finally watch it. Go, hey, I should have watched that 10 months ago. But even the breast cancer fundraiser I do now recently, within 4 months after the golf in September, I go, I really would like to do a high end $1,500 per person, $6,000 a group, and then have some major raffle prizes like 30 golf bags and $100 gift cards. Really just step it up a notch and try to find that kind of quote unquote money, people that would spend that for, go to certain companies and say, hey, this is what I want to do. What do you think? What would you want?
Yeah.
And somebody's like, that's never going to happen at where you want. And I'm just like, you know what? I've been told this throughout my life, and just.
Does it fuel you?
It makes me almost want to go out right now in the next couple of months and go and have a list of 100 businesses that I know have the money to do it, and just say, do you want to be number one? Even if I get 5, we're gonna rock it. We'll have the complimentary food, the champagne, every par 3 song. I mean, just keep thinking. You got to look at it, achieve it, and go after it.
Well, yes, and I would say
like what you're doing here.
Yeah,
some people you probably heard podcast. All right.
I had my kid call me today and tell me about an argument between Howard Stern and what's his name, Joe Rogan, and that Howard goes, podcast for people who just can't make it in broadcast. And he goes, Dad, I heard that, and I'm like, well, you were on the radio for. I go, yeah. He goes, how come that stuff doesn't bother you? And I said, I never listened to anybody. I never took anything anybody ever said to me, ever. And I mean that for the most part. I didn't. I never wanted. The only time I would take people's stuff a little serious is if they were hurt and I could, they were, for whatever my actions were associated with being on the radio. If I hurt their feelings, if I said something, if I did that stuff always bothered me. But in terms of you won't, you can't, I never cared. And I think a lot of times when I was younger, it probably got in my head. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence and stuff, but I think over time, I think if I talked about my childhood, way I was raised, things I went through, it would be labeled today as abusive. It would be. Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like in that sense, it was the greatest thing that ever happened, which sounds terrible. Awful to say.
On your path, it was great. And somebody else's path, probably not so good.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, it was one of these things where then you could basically practically take a verbal dump on my head and I didn't give a shit. I didn't care.
Right.
And I would always figure out, how do I get to do what I want to do and keep them quiet? I didn't care.
Right.
And I knew a lot of times I was one of the, usually in radio, I was one of the younger guys on the, I was on classic rock stations. I was one of the younger guys. I started at 19. I was 19 years old. There's not many, not that there aren't any, but there weren't many 19-year-olds on the radio at the time. And I knew, I could see I knew what people were saying, and I knew whose words mattered and I knew whose words didn't matter.
Right.
And that's it. But I would say to anybody, much like what you were saying, if you have an idea, keep it to yourself and just go do it.
Yeah,
because the other people get in your head.
Yeah, do it,
it can
and
go
then,
one of two ways.
Then talk about it. Yeah, have a jinx like that. You don't want to, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Yeah. Well, okay,
right.
Wait till you do it, and then let somebody else blow your horn before you toot yourself without doing anything.
That's right.
And that's all part of life. I think.
Oh, it is.
In learning that,
definitely is part of life, and I'm saying this as an old guy sitting here now.
Right, you're not that old. You're middle aged. I'm middle-aged. I'm 53. I plan on living over 107.
Is that it?
And probably nailing a 150-year-old at some point.
All right. We will take a moment. By the way, it's so cold.
How cold is it?
People are looking forward to getting a fever.
Hey!
Come on.
You know what? I was in... I was on Clinton Avenue today, and I bought a pair of snow boots from Crackhead, and they had no shoelaces.
Yeah.
Man, I've been tripping all day. I don't know about that one. I saved it on my phone.
I'll ask you this. Think about it while we take a moment.
Okay. Have you write it down?
Have you ever been the manliest man in the room? The manliest man in the room. Think about that. And we will get to it next, but first.
I've been tripping all day.